It's 10 minutes of 6 o'clock, but more importantly, it's the day that Minnesota finally gets two senators back in the U.S. Senate. Al Franken sworn in earlier today, and joining us now is one of the guys who helped him navigate the legal waters to get there, attorney Marc Elias. Marc, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, I gotta ask you, do you get noticed more now that you've been like in a very public case? Do you get better seats at restaurants now?
Hardly. No, it's still the same. Still get the same tables I always got.
Were you at the swearing in today?
I was at the swearing in today. It was really exciting to be there. It was great to see Senator Franken sworn in, especially after going through everything that he did. The 8 months of waiting, the hand recount, the canvass board, the election contest, and obviously ending it with the Supreme Court case.
So do you have a lot of spare time on your hands now, or that this is all over with?
Well, I was fortunate to have a lot of very patient clients. So I originally, when I came out to Minnesota, I thought I'd be away from my other clients for a few weeks. That obviously turned into several months. And I've been blessed. I have a good group of loyal and patient clients, so I'm catching up on some of the things that I have to do for them, and and looking towards the 2010 election cycle as well.
Hopefully none of them will end in such, I wouldn't call it chaos, but certainly as much legal maneuvering as this one was at the end. Although that's good for your business, so maybe I shouldn't wish that. But as you recognize, you know that we have a live blog, and we have all sorts of people in the live blog, including legal types and everything. We've been asking them for questions, and I have like a list longer than my arm, and I'm trying to weed through them. The big one though seems to be if you were in Ginsberg's shoes on the other side of this, and you had to argue and do that case, would you have done anything different than Ginsberg did, or that the Coleman team did?
Look, I think it's always easy after the fact to second guess the legal decisions that one side or the other makes. I mean, I recall very early in the recount being roundly criticized by some publications in the state and some legal analysts in the state for the way we were viewed as being too aggressive on absentee ballots. I remember a lot of criticism around some decisions we made, particularly the Supreme Court case we brought over seeking the certificate of election in late January. So it's always easy after the fact to forget the decisions that people didn't like that one team made when they won, and to focus on the mistakes or the decisions people made where they didn't win. I think the Coleman lawyers did a very good job for their client. I think that ultimately they just had less to work with. I mean, ultimately, more Minnesotans voted for Al Franken than for Norm Coleman, and there just wasn't much that they could do about that.
We've also had people asking, about a Supreme Court appeal. Were you disappointed you didn't get to go argue a case before the U.S. Supreme Court?
The answer is no. In part, no. Mostly because I'm glad that this ended, that Al Franken could be sworn into the Senate. But I never really believed that there was a realistic chance for Senator Coleman to bring this to the U.S. Supreme Court. I said many times for those folks who followed my press conferences during the trial or after the trial that the U.S. Supreme Court takes very few cases that they're asked to hear, and they frankly don't take many election dispute cases. Bush v. Gore obviously standing as an exception, but it's almost the exception that proves the rule. So there was really nothing about this case that would have commended itself for the Supreme Court to give discretionary review to it. So I think that had Senator Coleman sought review by the U.S. Supreme Court, I don't think it would have been granted.
Now, a lot of our folks on the blog here are saying that you seem to have the ability to see around curves here, the legal curves. You know what's coming up. Somebody asked, does that help you in driving at all?
Again, I think it's very nice of people to say that, and I appreciate all of the kind words that people have had to say about about some of the legal decisions we made. And like I said, I can point back to some decisions that we made that weren't so good, and some decisions we made that turned out to be good. So I think we did the best we could under what were, in many respects, very, very difficult circumstances, things moving very, very quickly, a statewide recount, followed by, we were in the Supreme Court four times, and there was just a lot of things going on at once. And I think both sets of lawyers did the best they could, and like I said, we were blessed with more votes.
There was a lot of ups and downs in the recount and the trial. Was there any time in there that was the darkest, that you had the most doubt about the outcome?
I'm not sure that I'd say it was the most doubt on the outcome. I think that in some respects, the early days of the recount, once the counting began, were in some ways the hardest. We had an internal count that your viewers know we would discuss publicly. We had an internal count where we thought things were, and we thought we were making good progress in picking up votes during the hand count, and it was not reflected in some of the press coverage or in the popular understanding of where things stood. And I won't say that it was a dark moment, but it was probably among the more frustrating parts of the process, because we knew that we were closing that margin, and that we were eventually in the lead, and it was difficult every day to read in the press or to hear people say that we were still hundreds of votes behind when we knew that wasn't the case. So I'd say that was probably the hardest period.
Now,
for me, at least.
We had Al Franken on last week, and he mentioned that we ruined his vacation because he sat and watched the UpTake. Were you did talk to Al at all during the trial, or communicate with him?
Oh, I talked to Al during the trial almost every day.
Okay.
I talked to Al during the trial and during the recount almost every day. And I, for that matter, watched the UpTake or some piece of it, if not every day, at least regularly. I was a huge fan of the UpTake and think that the service that it provided in this case is really, I think it made the process more transparent and understandable to people. I think that it gave it gave, and I think should have given, people a real sense of confidence that they knew what was going on in this process. And if I could have a service like the UpTake in every recount or every similar situation, I would recommend it.
And the last question we got for you: do you still have those lucky ties, and what are you going to do with them?
I do. I have the lucky tie, and in fact, I'm wearing it today. I wore it to the swearing in because, after all, today was the final count. Not a recount, but the final count. We had to get to 51, and I'm glad to see that Senator Franken appears to have come in by acclamation of his colleagues, which is great. But I wore it today just figuring, let's not leave anything to chance. I still have the tie, and I don't know what's next for it.
Okay. Well, Marc Elias, thank you for joining us. We're out of time here on the show, but we appreciate you checking in with us, and we appreciate you, of course, for listening. And, Mom, thank you for watching and listening. We'll be back here tomorrow at 5 o'clock. Mark Haney is up next at 6:05.